Hey guys, Stephanie with AmericanMuscle.com here with the SteedaSport Lowering Springs for 2015 and up S550 Mustangs. The SteedaSport Progressive Springs are going to be a good option for those of you out there that are looking for a lowering spring for a daily driven car or a street car that has a high ride quality and still lowers the car. These springs are ideal for the daily driver and some occasional track use as well. These are a progressive spring that's going to maintain ride quality and provide performance and enhance the looks of the car all at the same time. These springs offer a drop of just over 1 inch in the front of the car and 1 inch in the rear. So this is pretty much in line with the drops that a lot of the other springs offer, except a touch lower in the front. So a lowering spring is going to lower the center of gravity of the car to provide some handling improvements like reducing squat and body roll in corners and eliminating nosedive under hard braking. The drop that these springs offer is enough of a drop to eliminate the majority of the gap between the tire and the fender, and it's going to leave the car sitting just above the wheels and tires with some room to spare. So just for reference, we did install these on our 2015 with 255/40 19s on the front and 305/35 19s on the rear. The drop will look a little different depending on your wheel and tire setup, and these were installed on our EcoBoost. The majority of the springs out there are offering a 1 inch drop. And this may sound small to you, but the S550 chassis doesn't need a huge drop to obtain better looks or an improvement in handling. The S550 responds well to even a 1 inch change in ride height. You'd be surprised at how well the S550 chassis responds to a good set of springs in both the looks and the performance categories. And these are going to be compatible with both the factory and aftermarket wheel and tire setups, which is another nice feature of not having to really dump the car to improve the looks. It's a plus side of the S550s. They look good and respond well to a little bit of lowering, so you can create a functional low, meaning low enough to look good, but not low enough to cause issues either on the tire or under the car. It's going to leave you with a very streetable car still. So usually drop, ride quality, and performance are the main concerns when you're shopping for springs. These are a progressive spring, which means they have a progressive spring rate, which means that they're a good option for a street car. They don't have a harsh ride quality, but they will firm up as you start pushing the car, which works to give you the best of both worlds between comfortable and functional. Steeda does offer a linear spring as well if you don't want a progressive spring. So when it comes to ride quality, sometimes you can get a rough ride quality when you start lowering the car more, but that's not the case with these springs. Customers have actually given quite positive feedback on the ride quality of these springs. The ride isn't that much different than stock, besides the car having less body roll and being more planted overall. These aren't a stiff spring, they're more forgiving. The ride will be a little stiffer, but it's not going to be uncomfortable. Overall, these springs are intended for street and occasional track use, so they do give a stiffer than factory ride quality, but they're made to not be harsh, so still comfortable, but also able to perform when you want them to. As far as price, these springs are going to be right in between the $200 and $300 mark, which is right where the majority of other springs are falling as well. Of course, there are some springs that are either less expensive or more expensive than that, and even springs that are all across this price range. I will say that these are closer to the $300 mark though. So the install here is going to take about 4 hours, and I'm going to call it a solid 1 out of 3 wrenches on the scale because you will need some knowledge to complete this install. So I'd recommend having a knowledgeable helping hand or taking this to a shop for the install if you haven't done this before, especially since it's always a good idea to get in alignment after the install anyways. This install can be done on jack stands if you don't have access to a lift, but as usual, a lift would be your best bet here. You're going to need a few tools, including a spring compressor, so you can make sure you have that before you start the install. You're going to need to get down to the spring and strut assemblies, so everything like the wheels, brakes, ABS lines will need to be moved out of the way so you can pull the assemblies out of the car. The spring compressor will help you remove the springs from the strut and install the new front springs, which are compressed and installed the same way. The strut assemblies go back the same way they came out, and the install is the same for both sides. The rear's where things are going to be a little bit different, but nothing crazy here. Essentially, the IRS subframe will be dropped, along with the rear shock mount, so you can slide the rear springs up. Just like the front, the rear springs install the same way that they're uninstalled. There's no surprises here. The bump stop is slid onto the shock, followed by the factory dust boot. Then the new springs can be installed, and the IRS subframe can be bolted back up, and that's about all it's going to take. Like I mentioned earlier, a fresh alignment after the install isn't a bad idea. Wrapping things up here, the SteedaSport Springs offer a 1 1/4 inch drop in the front of the car and a 1 inch drop in the rear. They have a progressive spring rate, and they're designed for street and occasional track use. As always, I suggest you check these out more online for yourself, and for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.